So, kickstarting off the top 50, I have Julius Randle here at 50, who is coming off a season averaging 21 a game with 7 rebounds and 5 assists, while playing 79 games last year and shooting efficiently at 48% from the field. The problem with Julius Randle has never ever been the regular season. It's been the postseason where he's kind of struggled with turnover issues as well as efficiency issues, only shooting over 40% from the field one time in the postseason. That was that 2025 run. And yeah, I expected him have him higher on my list, but in order for me to move him higher, I need to see more success in the postseason. At 49, this is a tricky one. I have Jimmy Butler here, who is a very difficult player for me to rank, as well as all the other guys who missed time last year. Jimmy Butler only played 38 games last year before he got hurt. And Jimmy Butler is somebody we all know can step up when it matters most, right? He's been consistently one of the best playoff performers in the NBA. But yeah, before getting hurt, he was just a great fit in Golden State. He helped keep them afloat before last season kind of fell apart with injuries. Uh, and he might miss the beginning of next year. So, lots of questions about Jimmy Butler's health and how he will be coming off an injury. But I expect Jimmy Butler, if he's healthy, to rise up even more on this list. Here at 48 is somebody who we don't even know where they will be playing at the start of next season, and that's Trey Murphy III. He averaged 20 a game again last season on great efficiency. He was a great 3-point shooter again, and somebody who I can see rising a lot more on this list if he was in a winning system like Detroit. Um, so yeah, we just need to see what Trey Murphy looks like in a playoff setting, but I think he's somebody who has all the talent to be one of the best players, one of the best wings in the NBA. Yeah, he's just a great 3-and-D wing who has struggled a bit with injuries, but has potential to move up this list in the future. So moving on to number 47, I have Kon Kunipul of the Charlotte Hornets, who is coming off a historic rookie campaign, becoming the first rookie in NBA history to lead the league in 3-point percentage, shooting 42.5% in the modern NBA on high volume. Kon Kunipul played all but one game last year, was very consistent throughout the regular season, looked like a vet out there for the most part. And that all changed when we got to the postseason in the play-in tournament, coming off a run where Charlotte looked like one of the best teams in the NBA down the stretch of last year. And in the play-in tournament, he had a 6-point game, an 11-point game, got benched at the end of the games, and he just did not look like the same player he looked like in the regular season. So that's what's holding him from moving up higher on my list. But with him being only in his second year, he's very young and he has so much time to rise up this list in the near future and even this year. And he's also going to have to improve as a shot creator this year with the absence of Charlotte's best playmaker, LaMelo Ball. We'll see how Kon Kunipul adjusts and maybe grows as a playmaker this year for Charlotte, as they're going to need him to step into a bigger role this year with the absence of LaMelo Ball. We'll see if he can take that step this year. And moving on to number 46, I have the newest Chicago Bull, Norman Powell, somebody who has had an interesting career arc the past few years. He's kind of had a bit of a career revival ever since Paul George left the Clippers last year, and he took on that bigger role, and he really stepped up and earned an All-Star appearance this year in Miami, and he's going to be heading to his third team in 3 years, despite having the career revival that he's had. He's just been so efficient from the 3-point line. He shot 41% from three in the 24-25 season, and he shot 38% from three, shooting 7 attempts a night in both seasons. And he's just been so efficient. He's been a solid defender in that time as well. We haven't got to see a big sample size of him in the playoffs, so we don't really know what Norman Powell as a star, as one of the main options, will look like in a playoff setting. So that's kind of why I have him where I have him here and not higher. But Norman Powell is a very consistent scorer. Moving on to number 45, I have Desmond Bane of the Orlando Magic, who has just been a model of consistency and efficiency. He averaged 20 points on 48% from the field and 39% from three this season, just been a crazy efficient 3-point shooter for his whole career. He's never shot below 38% from three, and he played all 82 games last season. Uh, his game usually translates pretty well to the postseason. He's had a couple blunders here and there, but for the most part, he's a very consistent knockdown shooter who has earned his spot on this list. At 44, this is where I will have the four-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, who I expected to drop a little bit going into last year, but he sure proved me wrong. He had another good season this year, and especially in the postseason, when it came down to that series against Denver, he was just locked down on Nikola Jokic. I don't think I've ever seen Jokic get slowed down like that, certainly in a postseason setting. So, Rudy Gobert, once again, this gets tricky because when we're talking about offensive players versus defensive players, the value of defense in the modern NBA kind of gets pulled into question. And I think defenders like Gobert kind of get treated a little differently than the great offensive players. But I think Rudy Gobert has sure earned his spot on this list. At 43 here, I have Damian Lillard of the Portland Trail Blazers, and this one gets really confusing because he didn't play a single game last year, but when he plays, we know he is one of the most efficient three-point shooters in the league and one of the best offensive scorers that we have, right? He last time he played, averaged 25 a game on 48% from the field and 37% from three. So we know how efficient and how good Damian Lillard is offensively. It's just the questions now about his health, right? Uh, Coming back off that injury he suffered last year against Indiana. Is Damian Lillard gonna be the same? Many questions about that, and rightfully so. But Damian Lillard, this is a pick. I didn't even know whether it feels too high or too low. But once we saw him in the 3-point contest last year, he won that 3-point contest, while being injured and not playing a single game. So he might still have a lot left in the tank. At number 42, it is the newest Minnesota Timberwolf. It is LaMelo Ball here, uh, who finally was able to put his health together last season, right? He was going into the season. There were many questions about Charlotte trading him, regardless of how the season went, just because of his past of injury concerns. And this year, he put it together. He played 72 games this year. And really picked it up at the end and finally played some winning basketball, which he hasn't played yet in his career, as Charlotte went on a great run last year. He averaged 20 points with 7 assists on 40% from the field and 36% from three. So his stats on paper, right, don't look as good as they did before, at least from a volume perspective. He averaged 25 points the season before, almost 24 the year before, and 23 the previous year. His scoring volume dropped, playing next to Knippel and Brandon Miller, finally being in a winning system. But yeah, after that run, he struggled at times in the play-in, but he wasn't bad for the most part. But we're gonna have to see how he does being in an actual championship contender in Minnesota. We'll see how he does, deep in the postseason, hopefully, if Minnesota can get back there. But new situation for LaMelo. At 41, this one really, really hurt to do. But I have James Harden of the Cleveland Cavaliers here, who I really wanted to throw higher on this list. And I thought I would have him higher on this list, especially after the regular season. I thought he was very impressive when he got to Cleveland this year. And he was even impressive in his stint with the Clippers this year. But man, come playoff time, it was another blunder from James Harden. Especially when we got deeper into the playoffs. It just felt like the deeper we got, the more he struggled. He was okay, in some of those games against Detroit. He got to the line very well, but man, he struggled with his efficiency late, especially from three. He shot 29% from three in the postseason. And James Harden is somebody who I really want to see higher on this list. But if he continues to blunder in the postseason, he's going to continue to fall lower and lower on this list. At 40 is the guy who's oozing with potential. It is Amen Thompson of the Houston Rockets, who's coming off a season where he averaged 18 points per game, and a pretty efficient 18 at that. He shot 53% from the field, and he is just one of the most athletic players in the NBA, one of the best two-way players in the NBA. as he was elite on the defensive end this year. I believe he was all defensive first team this year. Another impressive season from Amon Thompson. In the playoffs, I would have liked to see him step up, right? I would have liked to see him be the leader, especially with KD out. I felt like that Lakers series is one where they should have won. He should have been more of a scoring threat, and he just wasn't. So I don't expect him to develop a jumper so soon, but even without a jumper, I still expect his offensive game to develop if he wants to move higher on this list. At 39, this is somebody who is dropped on my list pretty heavily. It is Jalen Williams of the OKC Thunder, who has fell due to obvious reasons, right? His health was just not there this season. He tore his hamstring, and from there, he just wasn't the same. I expected him to take a little scoring jump. That didn't happen this year. He stayed stagnant at 17 a game, which is 4 points lower than what he averaged last season. And despite the drop in volume, the efficiency stayed almost the exact same, which was disappointing to see. We barely got to see him this postseason, and we only saw him in 5 games. But his performance in last season's postseason gives me hope for him moving forward. At 38 is a pick that is sure to cause some controversy. It's Dylan Brooks of the Phoenix Suns, who I felt like has been maybe the most underrated player in the NBA for a long time now. He's coming off a season where he played 56 games, averaged 20 points per game on 43% from the field and 34% from three. I thought he was snubbed out of an all-star appearance this year. I really felt like he deserved it. Just the role he played on replacing Kevin Durant and making the Suns team better, like he does to every team he goes to, right? You saw Houston had a little fall off after losing him, and Memphis obviously had a huge fall off after losing Dylan Brooks. He also was a huge piece in the playoffs. He's always stepping up. He averaged 26 a game despite getting swept this year. Uh, he's just a great two-way player. I think he's a good leader. I think he's good at getting on players' nerves, and I think overall he makes everywhere he goes better. At 37, I have Alperen Şengün, who was a guy that many expected to take a bigger step than he did this year. Didn't have a bad season by any means necessary. He was an all-star and an all-NBA player this year. But once again, it just wasn't the jump many expected. He averaged 20 a game with 9 rebounds on 52% from the field. So an overall solid season for Alperen Şengün. It's just many expected him to take more of a jump than he did, and he was also very disappointing on the defensive end this year. Um, an area where I'd like to see him improve in the future. Uh, he had a solid postseason. He his numbers kind of translated from regular season to postseason, but in that series against LA, you'd have thought maybe the numbers go up with KD out of the lineup. Maybe he's more aggressive, and I just saw a lack of aggressiveness from Şengün in that postseason. So I'd like to see him be more aggressive if he wants to move up this list. At 36, I have Cooper Flag of the Dallas Mavericks up here already. I think his two-way ability has already shined on the next level, and he's not even close to his prime yet, which is very scary. He averaged 21 a game with 7 rebounds, won Rookie of the Year, played 70 games for Dallas this year. And despite Dallas not being a winning team, I think Cooper Flag was impressive throughout. I think he was used very weirdly throughout the season. And despite all the coaching concerns, Cooper Flag was able to pull and still have an impressive rookie year and still win Rookie of the Year. So I don't even think this is projection necessarily. I think Cooper Flag can easily end up way higher than this at the end of the next season, which I honestly think he probably will. I think he should be in that mid-20s range. But for now, we're going to be safe and throw Cooper Flag here. And here at 35 is the guy who just signed a max contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. It is Austin Reeves, who's coming off a 2025-26 season where he averaged 23 points on 49% from the field and 36% from three. Yeah, Austin Reeves is another guy who I would say kind of proved me wrong. I never foreseen him becoming the scorer that he has, but he's really stepped up, on a team that has a lot of scoring options like LeBron and Luka. he's able to stick out and still average 23 a game. And he might have more of a scoring load on him this season with LeBron absent. So Austin Reeves here at 35 just because of his scoring prowess. And here at 34 is somebody who I feel like had a very unfortunate 25-26 season, and that is Franz Wagner of the Orlando Magic. Somebody who had a very unfortunate end to the season for sure in that series against Detroit where they were up 3-1, and then he suffers that injury which leaves him out for the rest of the series, and Orlando goes on to blow that 3-1 lead. Overall, he wasn't very good in that series, though. He struggled from three, but his defense was great that series and was a big reason on why they were up 3-1. But losing that series had to suck, especially, just missing 3 games. They could have taken one of those games without him, but they didn't. Franz continues to struggle with his 3-point shot. Many expected, him to take a jump as a shooter this year, and it just hasn't happened yet. And he missed a lot of time this year in the regular season as well, as he only played 34 games. So Franz has great potential to move up this list, but there's just many questions on his playoff performances, his 3-point shooting, and his questions of his health. Here at 33 is somebody whose stock has tanked heavily due to his performance in the postseason. Chet Holmgren had a solid regular season. He played 69 games. He averaged 17 a game with 9 rebounds, and it was a solid season, right? He helped OKC, clinch the 1 seed in the West with Jalen Williams missing a lot of times, and he was the true second option on this team. And then come playoff time, things just switched, and it got worse and worse as things went on. And especially in that game 7, you could just tell, even though he was a first-time All-Star this year, he did not have the confidence of an All-Star, taking 2 shots in a closeout game, only scoring 4 points in that game 7 where they lost and got sent home. So in order for Chet to move up this list, I need to see more of a scorer's mentality in the playoffs, right? Like, no, there's no excuse for somebody who averaged close to 20 points per game to be taking 2 shots in a winner-go-home game. You're the second option on this team, and they expect a lot more from him, but he's still one of the best two-way players in the NBA right now. Moving on to number 32, it's somebody who's just been a model of inconsistency to me, and that has been Jamal Murray. Somebody who I never know what to expect, right? This year he had his breakout season, became a first-time All-Star this late into his career, and really stepped up as a scorer. He averaged 25 a game with 7 assists, and it was truly by far his best regular season. And then the playoffs came around, and then he actually had a blunder as somebody who can be known to be a playoff riser. Like we've seen, in the bubble, Jamal Murray really step up in like certain series. He's been great in the postseason. But that postseason against Minnesota, he was a huge factor in why they lost that series. He was inefficient. He shot 35% from the field in that series and only 26% from 3. And it just really goes to show you never really know what to expect from Jamal Murray. So I'm going to need to see some more consistency before I move him higher up on this list. Here at 31 is somebody who is kind of the opposite of Jamal Murray. It is OG Anunoby, who really stepped up these playoffs. He had an okay regular season. He averaged, close to 17 a game on, good shooting splits. But in that postseason, he was a different player. He averaged 20 a game on 40% from 3, and most of those came from the corner. And especially in that series against San Antonio, he really couldn't miss from the corner. And I've been quoted saying, like, he might be the best corner 3-point shooter I've ever seen. Elite defensively, obviously, that's something we've always known about OG Anunoby. And OG is one of those guys who this season really makes me want to see what he would look like as, a second option on a team. But OG was just fantastic this postseason, and it really made him rise this list. OG Anunoby is one of those guys, too, who I feel like has benefited heavily from his postseason. The Ringer, I think, had him all the way up at like 21 on their list, and I just think he really needs to step up as a scorer for me to really believe that he's that high up. as a player, but I still think he's earned his spot, as, at least an all-star caliber of player. It's just like it kind of gives me flashbacks to Chris Middleton and Derek White, making cracking people's like top 20 after their championship runs. And obviously they both didn't age well. But I think OG Anunoby is better, than both of those guys and was better than both of these guys in this postseason. Moving on to the top 30, I have somebody who would be a lot higher if he could just stay healthy. Once again, it's not his fault. He's already put his body through so much in his career, but it is Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. Only played 38 games this year, 19 games last year, and 39 games the year before that. And it's unfortunate to see how injuries have derailed his career. He's still an MVP candidate when he's healthy, which is almost never nowadays. He averaged 27 a game this year on 48% from the field, almost 49 if you round up. He was just dominant in that series against Boston in the first round. He's a big part on why they came back and won that series, down 3-1. He was the real difference maker. He struggled a little bit against New York, but it's very understandable considering New York were the NBA champions last year, and he was still fighting through some injuries. But Embiid here at 30. Continuing the theme of guys who have been derailed with injuries, I have Kyrie Irving here at 29, who is coming off a season where he tore his ACL 2 seasons back, missed all of this year, and I'm pretty sure we'll miss a little bit of next season. Last time we saw Kyrie, he looked great. We're honestly not too far removed from him being a second option on that Dallas team who went to the finals with Luka Doncic. Uh, Overall, Kyrie, much potential to move up this list. It's just so many questions on what he will look like coming off an injury. Coming in at 28, it's one of the weirdest players in the NBA. It's Paolo Banchero of the Orlando Magic, who has been very inconsistent, to say the least. You never know what to expect out of Paolo Banchero. He played 72 games last year, averaged 22 points per game on 45% from the field. His numbers regressing from last year, where he averaged near 26 a game. But Paolo stepped it up in the playoffs again against Detroit, just like he did the year previous and the year before that. So Paolo's 3 for 3 in his playoff appearances. He's just been dominant in the postseason, and it's really the only thing that's keeping him up on this list. His play style is honestly very frustrating. Way too many jumpers for a guy who is proven to not be a great 3-point shooter yet. Um, and, with his big frame, I think he's 6'10", 250. Yeah, you would expect for him to, drive to the basket more and get more looks at the basket. He's great at getting calls when he does, but I'd like to see his touch, which has been inconsistent at times, improve. But Banchero here at 28, lots of potential to move up or even move down. At 27 is someone else where I was struggling to rank them on this list. It's Anthony Davis of the Washington Wizards, who only played 20 games last year. It's no secret that Anthony Davis kind of struggles with his health at times. You guys are all familiar with the Day to Davis nicknames and everything. But Anthony Davis is still one of the most dominant two-way players in the NBA, as well as one of the best, if not, I'm trying to think, maybe top 3, top 2 lob threats in the NBA. It's very frustrating to see him struggle with injuries. He was really supposed to be, a top 5 player in the NBA, and uh, injuries have really derailed that. We'll see what he looks like next year. We'll see if he's healthy next year. We'll see if he's even playing for Washington next year, as he's yet to suit up for them, and there's many rumors on whether he wants to be there or not. But Anthony Davis is just a few healthy seasons away from moving up on this list. At 26, just not cracking the top 25, is somebody whose name has obviously gained a lot of infamy last year, dropping 82 points in a game. It is Bam Adebayo, obviously, of the Miami Heat, who is also just one of the best two-way players in the NBA. Obviously, a lot better on the defensive end than the offensive end, especially this year. Averaged 20 points per game, but only on 42%, 44% from the field. So we've seen better offensive seasons from Bam, despite the fact that he dropped 83 in that game against Washington. But Bam Adebayo is going to have a lot more eyes on him this year with Giannis joining Miami. We'll see how he looks next to Giannis, but he's somebody whose jumper has been questioned a lot at times too. Many people have been waiting for him to develop a consistent jumper, and it just hasn't happened yet. We've seen flashes of it, but Bam Adebayo at 26 for now. Moving on to the top 25, I have Denny Avdia of the Portland Trail Blazers, who was a first-time All-Star last year and whose scoring has really surprised me. I never, foreseen Denny becoming the scorer that he has this season, uh, as he took like a near 8-point jump this year in scoring without his efficiency really dipping much. Uh, Denny was very impressive against the play-in tournament. In the play-in tournament, he had a 40-point game, and he was solid in the playoffs in the 5 games he played against San Antonio. I think his scoring he'll continue to be a dominant scorer this year, even with Ja and Dame in the lineup. I still don't see his numbers dropping too much. I still think uh he showed how much of a great scorer he can be, and I think he's a top 25 player in the NBA. At 24, I have Karl Anthony Towns of the New York Knicks here, who really jumped out as a defender to me last postseason. I just saw so much improvement for somebody whose physicality has been questioned a lot. Uh, I really saw a jump from him defensively and offensively. While his numbers dropped this year for sure, he had a lot more pressure put on him this season, and he was a huge part in the playoffs for New York. Wasn't very impressive in the finals, but was still able to get that ring. At 23, it's somebody whose ceiling I'm really beginning to question. It's Evan Mobley of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who hasn't taken that scoring jump quite yet. He's averaging 18 a game on 54% from the field. Still a fantastic defender, obviously. He should always be, but his scoring jump hasn't happened yet, and this year made me kind of question whether it really ever will. He's still efficient, on 18 points per game, but he just hasn't jumped, and maybe that has to part to do with playing next to Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. But even when they're out of the lineup, I still haven't seen Mobley take that jump scoring wise, and it's something I need to see before I move him up on this list. At 22, it's another guy whose numbers won't do him justice, but it's Stephon Castle of the San Antonio Spurs, who took a major jump defensively this year and really looks like one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. Offensively, he's still fantastic at times. He's a cool, efficient 18 in the playoffs. Uh, Numbers that I expect to jump up next year. So I guess there is a little projection here, but he's here mostly for his defensive impact he had in the postseason and in the regular season. His size and agility, it was just on display all season long, and somebody who I expect to jump even higher on this list. At 21, just missing the top 20, is somebody who's going to be headed into their 24th season this year. The ageless wonder, LeBron James, who his numbers definitely dropped this year. I honestly don't think he deserved to be in the All-Star game just from his numbers alone this year. But of course, LeBron's always going to get in the All-Star game. Um, but in the playoffs, he really stepped it up against Houston, and he's always stepping up in the playoffs. What do you expect from potentially the greatest player of all time? Uh, He's remained relatively healthy for the past few seasons. He played 60 games this year, 70 games last year, 71 before that. And for a 41-year-old, very impressive. Just something we've never seen before. And maybe he will drop more on this list, but I'm going to throw him at here for now, especially after that performance against Houston. Moving on to the top 20, I have someone whose name can go under notice at times, not being the flashiest of players, but it's Pascal Siakam of the Indiana Pacers, who averaged 24 a game last year. Uh, he had a great season. He was an all-star again, but it went under notice because of Indiana's losing record, which is understandable. But we've seen that Siakam can step up and be a winning player. He was last year when 2 years back when Indiana went to the finals, and he was with Toronto when they won their championship. And he's overall just been a beneficial player to winning, just a great scorer and a great teammate. Siakam here at 20. Here at 19 is one of the more controversial selections on my list, and it's Jalen Johnson of the Atlanta Hawks, who I just think has no flaws in his game. He averaged 22 a game with 10 rebounds and 8 assists on 48% from the field and 35% from three. And just overall, really no flaws in his game, and I'm in love with the way he plays. Especially when Trae Young went out, he took that jump as, this team's number one option offensively. And I'm sure they're glad that they sent off Trae Young for a guy like this. Uh, Struggled a bit in the playoffs, wasn't, the same player he was in the regular season. But once again, it was his first playoff appearance as a number one option. And he wasn't horrible these playoffs, and he's somebody who I expect to jump even higher on this list next year. As crazy as it sounds, I am a huge Jalen Johnson guy. At 18, it's somebody whose game has not evolved too much. It's Devin Booker, who kind of feels stagnant. I feel like he's been in this 11 through 20 range for so long, right? And kind of feels like he's going to stay in this range. Hasn't been he hasn't, developed much as a playmaker or anything. He's just kind of been stagnant as a really good scorer, right? But even, his efficiency has been dropping as of late. So we'll see what happens. There's just not much to be desired in watching Phoenix play. Uh you got to wonder if he's ever going to request a trade out of there, but uh as of now, Booker here at 18. At 17 is the player who I think was the hardest to rank on this list. It's Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers, who got hurt in the biggest game of his career in Game 7 against OKC. And it was just sad to see. Coming off that injury he had, which was his Achilles. He also suffered with shingles this offseason, which made him put on weight. And it was just a sad thing to see. Uh, which made me hesitant to put him any higher on this list. But he really can just rise up on this list, but he can also drop a lot. Once again, he was just the hardest player to rank because he didn't play a single game last year, and you could see how Indiana's offense stagnated last year without him. Believe I'm saying this, but Kevin Durant is going to miss out on my top 15 as he's here at 16, which really just shows to go how talented the league is right now. But Kevin Durant was able to put together another solid season in Houston, but things really fell apart at the end. The team chemistry, you can tell, was off after the whole drama of everything going on with the Twitter incident. And he only played one game in the postseason as they had that disappointing exit to the Lakers. Uh, he's just kind of stuck in a weird situation. It's a weird fit in Houston right now. There's questions about the locker room. So we'll see. But Kevin Durant, obviously, still one of the most dominant scorers in the NBA. It's just with Kevin Durant, I've never found him to be the best player in the NBA or anything, just because outside of scoring, he really doesn't provide much, and he still really doesn't. So moving on to the top 15, another controversial choice here will be Scotty Barnes here at 15, who whose postseason really surprised me and changed my opinion on what his ceiling could be as a player. He averaged 24 a game on 50% shooting and 38% from three, as he was actually hitting his threes this postseason, which was very needed with the injury of Emmanuel Quickly and Toronto just struggling with their shooting to begin with. Yeah, Scotty Barnes as a defender, you really can't be understated, right? He's just one of the best defenders in the NBA, and he's going to be teaming up with Kawhi Leonard this year. And I really think Toronto's going to be scary, one of the best teams out east. And Scotty Barnes, man, really impressed me this season. And I'm excited to see what he will do next year, teaming up with Kawhi. Moving on to number 14, I have one of the best scorers in the NBA, and that's Tyrese Maxey of the Philadelphia 76ers, who averaged 28 game on 46% from the field and 36% from three. Uh, he's just one of the best scorers in basketball right now, and his numbers dropped a little bit in the postseason, but he was a huge reason on why they came back 3-1 against Boston, won that series, and we've seen him dominate in previous postseasons. So I don't have a lot of questions for Tyrese Maxey on that. With Jaylen Brown now in Philly, I wonder what his numbers are going to look like. I imagine his efficiency will go up as he won't be relied upon too much this year. And yeah, Maxey here at 14. At 13, I have Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors, who coming off an injury this year just didn't lose a step, right? He was still dominant, still a great player, still the best shooter, in basketball. And yeah, talent inflation and a little concerns about his health are the only reason he's this low, right? Like Steph Curry can still be considered a top 10 player in the NBA, and I wouldn't look at you any different. There's really not much to talk about Steph Curry that hasn't been already said, right? He's still one of the best off-ball players in basketball. And yeah, I mean, he started to shoot barely below 40% from 3, which I guess you can say, but yeah, just still one of the most dominant players and scorers in basketball. Here at number 12 is somebody who I'm seeing a little too high on other lists. It's Kawhi Leonard of the Toronto Raptors now, who finally put together a relatively healthy season. He played 65 games this year, averaged 28 points per game on 50% from the field. Uh, Probably his most efficient scoring season, at least in the regular season, right? He finished 7th in MVP voting this year, one of his best seasons. And he did end up getting hurt in the play-in tournament. So it shows that the injury concerns are always going to still be there with Kawhi Leonard, which is why I don't like to see him very high on other lists. He only played 37 games last year and is just consistently getting hurt kind of at the worst times. We've seen a couple of seasons now where he got hurt in the postseason, and it's kind of derailed what this Clippers era could have been. But Kawhi Leonard's still, easily probably a top 5 two-way player in the NBA when healthy. But the problem has been his health always, and I think people have looked at the one healthy season and kind of forgot who Kawhi Leonard really is. So I have him here at 12. Here at 11 is somebody who is also one of the best two-way players in the NBA, as well as somebody who will be going to a new team this season, and that is Jaylen Brown of now the Philadelphia 76ers, who has sparked some controversy as of late, right? Like going into the season, the news that Jason Tatum, would be out for most of the season. A lot of people expected, at least in the regular season, for Boston to take a back seat, right? Until maybe Tatum would come back. And it was kind of the opposite. As they were the 2 seed in the regular season, Jaylen Brown really stepped up, looked like a true number 1 option. Uh, a guy who is also a former finals MVP. And I'm surprised that he didn't crack my top 10. And it really has nothing to do with, the reports that have been coming out lately, right? And it's kind of been lowering people's stock in Jaylen Brown. The reports about him always thinking he's the smartest guy in the room or whatever they said, which he kind of is, right? If you guys know Jaylen Brown's history, like Jaylen Brown is proven to be, one of the smartest guys in the NBA. And I don't really buy into any of it, right? Like, yeah, maybe his stock to other teams is very low. That's why he only went for Paul George. But I still, I'm not going to buy into the Jaylen Brown hate. I think there's a lot of context to the on-off numbers. We already know what he is defensively. There's questions about him offensively, and when he's not able to get to his isolation spots, like he could stagnate the offense, and things get a little, like clunky in the offense. I completely understand that about Jaylen Brown, but I still think just being one of the best two-way players in the NBA, as well as being a Finals MVP, earned you a spot on this list. All right, kicking off the top 10, I have Donovan Mitchell here at 10, who has had one of the most unfortunate past few seasons, right? Not even just past few seasons. I mean, like in this decade, right? Just disappointing exit after disappointing exit after honestly great series after great series, right? This year in the postseason, he averaged 26 a game on good efficiency. The year before that, he averaged almost 30 a game on decent efficiency. The year before that, he almost averaged 30 again on good efficiency. Like, it's just Donovan Mitchell is so consistent in the postseason, and it never ends up mattering, right? Like, I don't think Donovan Mitchell has had that elite team next to him yet. Like, I think he has a lot of help in Cleveland, but he could have really used a true second scoring option this postseason. And James Harden just wasn't that. And I think he struggled to find that, right? He's always paired up with great defensive players. And Donovan Mitchell is somebody who I want to have higher in this list, right? Just being as consistent of a scorer as he is. And I think he goes so underlooked. And I really hope to see him at least get to a finals appearance because I don't want him to be a name that kind of fades out, right? I've been a huge fan of Donovan Mitchell for a long time, and I think he has proven to be one of the most consistent scorers. And I think he always plays his role to a T, right? Like this year, they really needed him to be, to have a higher volume of scoring. And last year, when they were the one seed, Donovan Mitchell accepted his role, uh, taking a scoring backseat, right? Like he was not as elite of a scorer the year prior when they were the one seed. So I think no matter what you ask Mitchell to do, I think he's gonna deliver and do what's best for team success. And I don't think he's had like any generational chokes really. Like I know he blew the 1-3-1 lead or whatever, but Donovan Mitchell hasn't played himself out of a series yet that I've seen. So I have Mitchell here at 10. Here at number 9 is Cade Cunningham of the Detroit Pistons, who uh, did something that I didn't think would happen this year, and I don't think a lot of people saw coming, leading Detroit to the number 1 seed out east without, a real dominant second scoring option. Like Jalen Duren was the real second option on this team, at least in the regular season. Obviously, in the postseason, he really wasn't. And despite the lack of help, I feel like for Cade this year, this is one of the most impressive seasons I've seen, and easily his most impressive season. Right, he averaged almost a double double this season, and stepped up in the playoffs. Even though they were down 3-1 against Orlando, he led them to that comeback, and he played two great series. I feel like averaging 28 on 43% from the field in the playoffs. Like I think Cade had a great postseason as well, and he proved like he was playing like almost 45 minutes a game in that Orlando series. Like he was a real Iron Man and a real hero of that series. They really needed him. I know Franz was out in that series, and that obviously played a huge role in why they came back in one. But I think Cade, you know, really proved that he is dominant in the regular season and the postseason. I think he proved his game transcends. All I really needed to see from Cade this year to throw him in these discussions, I said, was just see him win a playoff series. And even though there were injuries involved, he still pulled through and won that series. I know it was an 8 seed, but I don't think that Orlando team was your typical 8 seed. So I have Cade here at 9. At number 8, I have Jason Tatum, who is just coming off his Achilles injury that he suffered in the playoffs against New York 2 seasons back. And this season, he came back late in the season, only played 16 games. But for somebody coming off the injury that he came off, looked great, right? He averaged 22 and 10 on 41% from the field and 33% from three. So the efficiency is not the usual Jason Tatum efficiency, but knowing who Jason Tatum is and, seeing him step up again in the playoffs, right? They still lost that series, but he did miss game 7 of that series, which played a huge factor in that. Jason Tatum had another fantastic season, and I have a lot of hope for next season. With Brown being out of the lineup now, I expect Tatum to lead Boston to a similar season to how Brown did, right? A lot of people are expecting Boston to take a step back without a star in the lineup. And I think Jason Tatum can do just what Jaylen Brown did last year, right? And that's lead Boston to, one of the top seeds out east without a true, number 2 option, right? His number 2 option might be like Derek White this year. But yeah, overall, I expect a lot from Jason Tatum. I think this front office does, right? And it says a lot on why they kept him instead of Jaylen Brown. Uh, and I think Jason Tatum is, once again, one of the best two-way players in the NBA. I still kind of hold on to the opinion that he should have won Finals MVP in 2024 just for his playmaking and defense that series, right? Even though his shot wasn't really going, he wasn't the most efficient that series. What I love about Jason Tatum is even when his shot isn't going, he can still affect the game in so many ways. At number 7, I have Anthony Edwards of the Minnesota Timberwolves, who again and again proves everybody wrong in the postseason, pulling upset after upset, in years where they're always underdogs. Like they felt like they should have been first round exits, like maybe 3 years in a row now, right? Like we go to this Denver series and they were underdogs this series. Like they were definitely a dark horse pick to win that series. And, it's not like it was a 50-50 split either. Like I think Denver, were good favorites. Denver was one of the championship favorites this year. And Anthony Edwards, despite, Julius Randle struggling a bit, and Rudy Gobert, I can't even complain about because he had a fantastic series. But Anthony Edwards led them to win that series, and when he came back, helped them stay a little competitive against San Antonio. Right? We're talking about a guy in Anthony Edwards who led Minnesota to back-to-back conference finals appearances and didn't get him there this year, but still had an impressive postseason, knocking off Denver, right? Even though he got hurt that series and didn't finish that series off. Him just putting them in the situation to win that series was very impressive in a series where they were underdogs. And now that he can play with LaMelo Ball, who will probably be the best second option he's had beside maybe Cat, right? Things will be a lot more exciting for Minnesota in the playoffs. I hope LaMelo Ball takes a lot of the scoring pressure off Anthony Edwards, who I think, especially in the postseason, gets targeted so heavily, as a scorer, and it kind of causes him to struggle with efficiency at times. So, yeah, that's why I have Anthony Edwards here at 7. Also, uh, he has an underrated defensive impact that I don't think gets talked about enough, right? And he's just such a great leader. So Anthony Edwards here at number 7. At number 6, falling outside of the top 5 for the first time in I don't even know how long, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo of now the Miami Heat, dropping lower than he's been on this list, in forever. And it's just a weird situation for Giannis. It's been a few disappointing exits in a row for him now, right? He hasn't been outside of the first round since 2022, and it's not all his fault. But we are coming off a season where he had to sit through an injury that he wanted to play through. He said he wasn't really hurt, and Milwaukee was tanking for that pick. And I think people were so tired of the whole Giannis trade debacle that it kind of went under notice. But Giannis could just be the best two-way player in the NBA when he's healthy. He's still elite on both ends. Only played 37 games this year, but he's proven that he can be healthy and can be the number one option on a championship team. But the only reason why he falls so low is because of the lack of success, right? He hasn't been outside of the postseason since 2020, outside of the first round since 2022. And questions about his health, about how he's going to look in Miami. There's just a lot of questions going on, leading him outside of the top 5. But I think it's very, very likely that he gets back in this top 5. And who knows, if he has a good enough season, he can be back all the way up to number 1. At number 5, it's Captain Clutch himself, Jalen Brunson, whose stock is at an all-time high. And I don't think it's really to be questioned why, right? Like, Jalen Brunson might just be one of the biggest, maybe in that top 3, uncomfortable discussions of playoff risers of all time. Like, we're coming in on the 5th season in a row where Jalen Brunson really just stepped it up in the playoffs. It all started, in that last year with Dallas, when he averaged 22 a game in that postseason. And then it started from there. And then I feel like by that second postseason run with the Knicks, it was well known that he was just going to be a playoff riser. And look at him now, a Finals MVP, and really breaking out of the mold of the questions of small point guards in the modern NBA, kind of, slowly fading out, right? Like we saw Ja Morant and Trae Young kind of not work out as of recently. And Jalen Brunson is really taking care of it. He's carrying that load of being the only elite small guard that's left right now. He's listed at 6'1", I think, but he looks more like 6 foot. And he's really just one of the best scorers we've seen in a postseason setting. Uh, yeah, Jalen Brunson here at 5. At number 4 is Luka Doncic of the Los Angeles Lakers, who I can't wait to see in some real meaningful basketball. I've really missed it. Last year, he missed that series against OKC and missed the whole series against Houston. And the year previous, they were eliminated by Minnesota in the first round, but that was a series where LA didn't stand a real chance there. They were just completely outmatched. I really want to see Luka in a deep postseason setting. Like we haven't seen it since uh the year he took Dallas to the finals, right? And I miss seeing Luka in those deep playoff runs. We know how dominant Luka can be. We know how great he is, in the closing moments of these playoff games. We saw, his big shot against Minnesota in the conference finals, the year they went to the finals. We know what Luka can be. Uh, it's just been questions around how this Lakers team has been built around him so far. So we'll see if he could put his health together and put together a deep postseason run, right? Like they lost LeBron this year. So there are a lot of questions about the Lakers, especially in this deep West. But Luka's going to stay here at 4. Obviously, great scorer, great passer, uh, and has great size and a great handle and great footwork. Like we know Luka is great. Starting the top 3 is somebody who I'm really beginning to have questions about. It's Nikola Jokic, who just had a terrible postseason and a terrible series against Minnesota, getting eliminated in the first round. Uh, there was some hope after Anthony Edwards got hurt that maybe Denver can uh, make things right and come back, win the series, and go on a run. But it didn't happen. Nikola Jokic, I feel like, had his worst postseason yet against Minnesota. Even if the box score numbers don't look like the worst, it's just not Nikola Jokic standards. He averaged 26, 13, and 9, which is crazy to say. That's a bad series, but for Jokic, it really was. Um, Gobert just did a great job defensively, with Jokic. And Jokic, if you look at the box score numbers, you might think he's the best player in the NBA. And I still might agree with the sentiment that he's the best offensive player in the NBA when it comes to, that scoring and passing combo. I don't think there's ever been anything like Jokic, right? But yeah, lots of questions about Jokic in his playoff success, right? Like I've seen a lot of questions about his championship and how legit it is, and I'm never gonna be one to discredit a championship, even though I feel like he did have an easier route than other players did to their ring. Jokic still, is a champion for a reason, and he's one of the most efficient players we have ever seen. But I'd like to see, maybe some more postseason success, or uh him maybe being able to hide his defensive limitations a little bit more for him to move higher on this list. I have Victor Wembanyama here at 2, and I said that he stamped himself as the best player in the world when he beat OKC in that game 7. But I'm gonna have to slow down on that right now. Wemby obviously had a fantastic postseason. The exit against New York was a little disappointing, but once again, I wouldn't say Wemby had a bad series. That series, it was his first postseason run. If we're really being for real about Victor Wembanyama, I think any criticisms about him are kind of ridiculous right now. And it really does bother me about Wemby. It's like I don't understand. I get why we're putting all this pressure on him, but like, do we not see how much he's already accomplished, right? He got the Spurs team to the finals already, and uh he really put together his health this season playing 64 games. So that's always a good thing to see. I think Wemby very well could just take this number 1 spot very early into next year. But as of right now, I still have concerns about how healthy he's gonna be, right? Every time Wemby would kind of go down this postseason, your heart would drop a little bit just knowing historically what happens to players his size. And I would like to see maybe the scoring just increase a little bit from a volume perspective, you know, a little bit more on the rebounding end. And Wemby for sure would be the best player in the NBA. Or even if he were just to put it all together and win a ring, right? Like, as impressive as the win against OKC was, we know they weren't fully healthy. Uh, so there are context to things for Wembanyama, but I wouldn't be mad if you had him at 1. At number 1, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder, who is making a case to be the most efficient guard I've ever seen. Uh, his scoring numbers have just been unbelievable, right? Like, In the postseason this year, they didn't quite transfer, but there was so much context with that, with Jalen Williams struggling with the injury and Chet Holmgren not being able to step up as a real second option. I think Shea even taking that San Antonio team to 7 says a lot about him. With the bad series he was having, he's always going to be an impactful player, right? I think his defense kind of gets way underlooked at times. Like, I think, he has a defensive player of the year vote, which I don't think a lot of people know. But Shea is just like on the defensive end. Like, I think there's been seasons where you could have questioned, throwing him, into an all defensive second team. And I don't think that's crazy to say. Like, he's just one of the best help defenders, on the perimeter that we have, while also being the best scorer in the NBA and the most efficient scoring guard that we've seen in forever. Um, and what I also love about Shea is you never really have to question the health, right? Like, Shea's one of those guys, he just feels like he's always healthy. Uh, he's played at least 65 games 4 years in a row now. Um, and even though there's been questions about him in the postseason, I think it's kind of ridiculous. He averaged 30 a game, 29.9. So basically just say 30 the next season, and then almost 28 a game this year. So I don't really like. I know they're not exactly like transferring, and the efficiency isn't either. But that's going to happen most of the time. I think if we just look at the overall package right now and who do you trust the most to win you a championship as a number one option right now, there's just no questions and no flaws really in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So I have him here at number 1, rounding out my list. So there it is. That's my top 50. Screenshot it, share it. Please like the video and subscribe if you want more videos like this. It would be very appreciated. Um, and drop a comment down below too, letting me know, what I got right, what I got wrong. I'm sure, some of you guys will. And if you would like to see me extend this list and do 100 through 51, I kind of already have the list prepped. Um I would love to maybe do that one next, and I'm thinking about doing a hot takes video for my next video, so look out for that, and thank you for watching.